Heart and mind. It's me. I'm Dr. Dina McMillan. It's episode 18 today. It's almost Christmas. It's almost New Year. And today we're talking about the higher ground, better by design. Now, a lot of you may be thinking, I don't want to go on the higher ground. Rata, frata, snatta, frata. If you ever watched Fred Flintstone, the Flintstones, when he cursed, he'd say, rata, frata, snatta, frata. You may be saying the same thing, looking at a lot of what's going on, but I'm going to give you some really important information today about why it's smarter, safer, and more lasting if you don't sink to the level of what we're dealing with. So let's get started. Now, the show is back to live streaming. And I hate to do this to you because last week I had a scheduling conflict, so we had to record the episode. We're live today. So, however you're watching this show, whether it's X, Rumble, the Daily Clout site on Facebook, please sign in and let me know you're here. Give me your opinions. I really want to know what you think. However, since next week is Christmas, this show would normally be airing on Christmas Eve when everybody's traveling, cooking, and getting ready for the holiday. So instead, we're going to go one day earlier. So next week, and I'm going to put the notice everywhere, next week, we're going to be live streaming on Monday night at 8 p.m. instead of Tuesday night at 8 p.m. I have somebody that says that they're going to switch over to Brian O'Shea, who has a fantastic show, but Roscoe says he'll definitely come back and watch it. And that's the good thing about this show, that you can watch it as many times as you want. You can show it to other people because it's also recorded. So if you go on these platforms, you'll see the recorded version. And if there's something you missed, if there's something you want to show someone else, that's a good opportunity to do that. Now, those of you who've watched before know I'm a social psychologist, and I keep finding fun ways to show what an evil science I belong to. Now, yes, we study power dynamics and learning. Yay, isn't that nice? However, we also specialize in influence, persuasion, coercion, manipulation, indoctrination, and brainwashing. And again, we don't just, often when people say, oh, I study that, it's like you're in nature and you look at what's going on. No, we're much worse than that. We actually experiment where we look to see how we can change other people's beliefs and behaviors without them recognizing it was somebody external who purposely pulled those strings of manipulation and changed what they thought or what they did. So you have to be very careful. And as interesting as I find my field, I also don't like seeing people get taken advantage of. So I have always wanted to share this knowledge with the world. Now, speaking of sharing knowledge with the world, that's something Naomi Wolf and her colleagues have done with this fantastic book, The Pfizer Papers. You can actually support Daily Clout's historic work by buying a copy of the Pfizer Papers, which has the latest analysis on the clinical trials done by Pfizer. You know, the ones that they wanted to keep quiet for 75 years, the ones that they're still trying to suppress and keep this book from getting to people. If your New Year's resolution includes becoming wiser and better informed, I'd suggest you get your own copy of the Pfizer Papers. Now, speaking of New Year's resolutions, does everybody have their New Year's resolution up yet? If you want some really good hints and tips on how to not only make really good resolutions, but be able to keep them, be successful at reaching those goals, please check out episode 17 from last week, where I walk you through it. And as usual, everything's solution focused, everything's simple, easy, and it works. And speaking of work, The holidays are here, which also means it's sick season. Sinus infections, strep throat, upper respiratory hacking. Everyone is traveling and passing it all around. But guess what? You don't have to deal with it this year, folks. Why? Because this little blue case is your mobile urgent care. It has ivermectin, Z-Pak, amoxicillin, and 6 other prescription medications at your fingertips. Thanks to the wellness company's medical emergency kit, you can tackle anything severe your body comes across without ruining your holiday plans and winding up in urgent care. This kit cuts through the red tape by allowing you to take control of your health versus being reactive and inconvenienced during precious family time. You don't need a gatekeeper because their medical board created a guidebook that outlines common treatments for UTIs, strep throat, bacterial infections, respiratory illnesses, and more. All it takes is filling out a digital intake form, and your kit arrives at your door in 1 to 2 weeks. Travel with peace of mind throughout this whole winter and holiday season. Order your kit now by heading to dailycloudhealth.com and using the code Dr. Dina to save up to $30 off plus free shipping. USA residents only. Now, today we're going to do something that, again, may be a little bit challenging. We're going to talk about why it benefits you to not sink to the level of a lot of what we've been seeing. I spent 2 episodes showing you some of the horror that we've been dealing with from Democrats who are furious about the Trump win and the fact that the House and the Senate are Republican dominated now. I'm hoping the domination is even greater because I'm hoping that once Trump gets into office, that the investigations into the states that obviously cheated, like California, will go forward. Arizona is another one. I don't want them to get away with it. It emboldens people to cheat. But before I do that, I'm going to answer Roscoe's question because he wants to go over and see Brian. He wanted to know when social psychology was used to manipulate the public. Repeat after me, COVID era. But even before COVID, so many of the beliefs we have about different groups and what's right and wrong and what's okay and what we're supposed to accept have been based on what we heard from the media, including the news, what we saw getting awards. Accolades is important. We've talked before about the importance of attention. By paying attention to certain groups, certain behaviors, it's telling the brain this is important, and in some way this is something to emulate. I talked about the fact that no matter what era a show or film was set in, that the protagonist, the hero and heroine of the show, always had a certain mindset towards groups that they would not necessarily have felt that way in real life. We never have anybody, I'm not saying they have to be really prejudiced. I'm just saying they would have at least asked questions and said, well, wait a minute, if we bring in people from that other group into our group, how is it going to impact us? What's it going to affect? What's it going to do? And by not having the hero or heroine ever ask questions, it tacitly, silently, implicitly showed us we weren't supposed to ask questions either. And then, of course, in the COVID era, when they wanted to convince us to be terrified of a cold and to not seek out options that had enormous numbers of studies supporting them, all they did, we had politicians calling people bad names. We had Hollywood idols talking about how wrong and stupid people were who didn't follow the plan. We had people ostracized by those same people. If you don't do what we say, you can't come to my concert. We don't want you to listen to my music. I don't want you to watch my films. That's social psychology. But again, most of the time it's more subtle. Most of the time when you've been influenced, you didn't even pick it up. During the COVID era, it was pretty obvious because they wanted it to happen fast and they wanted to decrease defiance. But I can see a lot of the influence over the past 25 years that the average person doesn't realize it was not their own decision. And much of what would say that that decision was wrong, they've been taught to ignore. So I'm warning you now, as you learn how to spot the strings, some of what you believe right now may change. And I don't mean your belief in God. I don't mean your belief in supporting the country. I think those will be supported by the evidence. But some of the other things, not so much. Now, speaking of people who don't believe things, today I'm going to talk about my decision to sign up for BlueSky, the app that's trying to be like X, but for Democrats and left-leaning people. And I'm going to also discuss with you in detail, but not too much detail, why not acting like them is actually a good idea. It actually brings us a better future. And Roscoe, you're welcome. So let's head in and look at what I found when I dared to enter into BlueSky. But give me a second first. Increased tariffs on our trade partners, tax cuts, and regulation changes. Learn why gold is a viable diversification tactic now more than ever. Birch Gold, the only gold company I trust, is releasing their ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. To get your free copy, along with Birch Gold's free information kit on gold, text Daily Clout to the number 989898. Here's the facts. The national debt continues to increase. Our interest payments on that national debt also continue to increase. Gold is still your hedge against a weakened dollar. And Birch Gold is still the company I trust to help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. Text Daily Clout to 989898 for your free copy of the ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era. There is no obligation, only information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews, and thousands of happy customers like me, you too can trust Birch Gold. Text Daily Clout to the number 989898 today. So, heading into BlueSky. Now, there were 2 reasons I went into BlueSky, and it wasn't just because I wanted to have material for this show. I also worry about being in an echo chamber. As more and more Democrats have left X, it's nice being around people who actually see the world the way you do, but it's also a little dangerous if you're trying to stay objective. And that's one of my goals, is to try to stay objective. And I also had another reason for going there. My Unmasking the Abuser program, I've mentioned it before, is the world's first and still the only prevention education program for domestic abuse and violence. And I have never been someone who only wanted to help people who look like me, think like me, and vote like me. I don't want anyone to be in a toxic, abusive relationship. So I want to get that information out there. And if a lot of Democrats and left-leaning people are not available in other venues where I'm giving this information out, I want to go where they are so I can actually share this with them. In addition, I created a program in 2020 called Healing the Rift after I saw the nightmare of the anti-racist programs that were being given so much attention and funding in the United States, the UK, Australia, and other places, starting with the Black Lives Matter movement. So I said, I knew it was going to hit a wall and it was going to crash, because there is a way people can be influenced. There is a way we can learn to work together. And none of those components were in these programs. They were about blaming and shaming and getting people to the point that they were vulnerable enough to be manipulated. So I developed something alternative, because the fact of the matter is, we have to live around and work around people who may think very differently than we do. So I developed this program, and the first time I offered the program very successfully, I asked one of my sisters, one of the lefty sisters, the Democrat sisters that's not speaking to me, she gave the program with me. And it actually improved our relationship enormously, because again, it focuses on why bias is a bad idea, which I'm going to share with you today, some of the components from that, but also how you can really focus on what you have in common, what kind of common goals you have, and get a group of people who on the surface are incredibly different, and even below the surface are incredibly different, and still get them to successfully work together with minimal conflict. Now, let me just show you something about BlueSky. I wanted to share some information. Now, I don't know about you guys. Look a little closer to the one on the upper left. That's kind of funny. This is something I found on BlueSky. Gosh, they're angry over there. Nasty, angry. Although, a couple of things. There's some people there that put up beautiful nature photos, which I really appreciate. And here's another thing that's not so good. A lot of graduate students over there, which lets us know that President Trump's efforts to get the indoctrination out of the universities is well timed, because these people are choosing to stay away from any kind of information that could bump up against what they're being indoctrinated to believe, and going on BlueSky and to the echo chamber where everyone applauds when they do things like this. I thought the fact that when you accidentally wash your KKK robe with your MAGA hat, I felt guilty because I thought it was funny. Okay. Now, if you can't see the hat, the Klan hat, nobody mentions on BlueSky, by the way, that the Democrats started the KKK. And until recently, most of the KKK was Democrats still. It was not Republicans in the KKK. So the red hat says, "Make America Hate Again." And then, congratulations to America, you got back with your ex who's supposed to be in prison. Another guilty laugh. Okay, a little bit of a guilty laugh. But we're going to talk in a second about why they were working so hard to get Trump in jail. But this is basically the atmosphere. I'm going to show you two really short videos. This is basically the atmosphere of what I encountered on BlueSky.
MAGA, Southern MAGA women, all MAGA, really. This is for you. I was thinking about Thanksgiving last night again, and I don't think that this is going to happen to you, say, if you go out to eat. But if you're going to attend a mixed bag event, variety of political opinions, are you concerned about your relatives maybe spitting in your food? Maybe they won't.
So she goes on about spitting in people's food if they voted for Trump. And that seems terrible until you see this other woman who seems so righteous, self-righteous in how she's saying
Where's the third
things.
assassin? Show yourself. Third time's the charm, babe. Somebody, not me, FBI. Somebody else. I believe in you.
So I have to ask you, please understand something. What makes me different from other people, when we go through this information and I talk about taking the high ground, I in no way, form, or fashion mean that we should continue to allow the left and the Democrats to get away with the actual crimes that they're getting away with. If anybody on our side had made a video like that, there would be an outcry to say that person should be jailed. And so often we've gotten used to treating people who are on the left like badly behaved toddlers. And we have to remember these are full adults. They need some consequences for their actions. I think a lot of it, and before we talk about the rest, let me just show you one more thing. Most people know that staying hydrated is essential to nearly every bodily function, but 75% of Americans still don't consume enough fluid daily. As we age, natural bodily changes make staying hydrated even harder, especially without artificial additives or excess sugars. That's where Native Path comes in with extra help. Native Path's Hydrate is not just another drink mix. It's a thoughtfully designed formula packed with BCAAs and all 9 essential amino acids to help with muscle recovery and overall vitality. Plus, it's completely sugar-free and 100% natural. With their Native Hydrate product, you can fuel your body with essential electrolytes at the cellular level for overall vitality. Unlike other hydration drink mixes that are designed for marathon runners and contain upwards of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, Native Hydrate contains just 230 milligrams of sodium for optimal daily hydration. Free of artificial flavors, sugars, and dyes, it's only 5 calories per serving. Right now, you can get up to 44% off just for being a listener of our show. Every order comes with a 365-day money-back guarantee, 2 free gifts, plus free shipping. Visit nativehydrate.com/Daily Clout to see what Native Hydrate could do for your health. Again, that site name is nativehydrate.com/Daily Clout. Now, I want to talk about some things, and if you've been watching for a while, I have a friend who's just a former show host, successful author, really influential, and has opinions that sometimes are like mine, sometimes are different. So I'm going to ask her to join us as we look at what else I found on BlueSky. Hey, Melinda, how are you?
Hello, Dina. Nice to see you again this week. How are you?
I'm very good, sort of. I was kind of stunned and appalled when I went on BlueSky because I knew it would be bad.
Yes, yes.
I mean, right now there's a whole movement. This is just a little snippet, audience. This is just a little snippet. There's a whole movement to try to compete to terrify each other about Bobby Kennedy Jr. bringing back polio.
Yeah.
And
I mean, look, the thing that struck me when you were talking just a minute ago is that when you watch these videos, and I see a lot of these radical videos as well, because they are competing for attention. So to get attention, sometimes you've got to go more and more and more extreme, because these people are fighting for likes, they're fighting for attention, because that's what a lot of, narcissistic people do, I find. But the funny thing is that I'm sure, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you being the expert and the social psychologist, but I am sure if you actually went up to these people and had a coffee with them and said to them, hey, you know what you've said there about condoning murdering a person, that you feel that you have the moral high ground, that it's just so high that it actually negates everything else, including condoning murdering someone. I wonder, Dina, if those people would actually be surprised that their behavior is even being called out, and that they would have no self-awareness or not enough to actually come back and go, well, yeah, maybe I was a little bit, maybe that is a bad thing. And I just don't even think that they would even consider that the videos they're putting out are actually morally reprehensible when you condone
That's
murder.
because they're only listening to each other. But you look at when you have a lot of people condoning violence against Trump and Trump supporters, you can see it actually results in genuine assassination attempts.
Yes.
You look at how the Democrats have decided to treat the person who murdered the CEO, the health insurance CEO recently. Everybody followed a specific script that says you're supposed to talk about how sexy he is. So you have all of these celebrities and all of these people online being interviewed for other things, all doing what they're told, talking about how sexy he is. So what is the message that's being sent? That if you actually hurt or kill someone that we don't like, you're not only going to be protected, you're going to be admired.
Yeah, and set up, and I remember after the Trump assassination attempt, I was doing my show at that time, and the number of videos that came out, hundreds and hundreds of them, where, these deranged people were talking about the bullet missing and could we get someone next time to aim better. I mean, that was the big thing at the time, and it was such a trend, and everyone thought they were being cute and smart, which of course was disgusting.
But I'm seeing it in real life. I know that when I was working for Queensland government, I was discriminated against so much that I was told by a law firm that I could actually sue them. No, I didn't. I didn't bother. But these people are actually advocating bullying anyone who doesn't share their cultural and political views, and it's actually manifesting in real life. And we don't even have to go to assassination attempts. I was treated so badly and so differently, and they felt they were justified because they hired me based on what I look like and the boxes they thought I ticked, without bothering to look me up and seeing that I am politically and culturally more conservative than they liked. Now, I also wrote the Healing the Rift program, so even the other work colleagues that were very different, who had lifestyles, behaviors, and things that I disagreed with wholeheartedly, we worked together really, really well, which also bugged them. They expected me to be quiet and disapproving, sitting in the corner glaring at people, and that's just not how I work. We got along really well. We worked together really well, even with people who were completely different from me. So they could not base their discrimination on my performance. I brought my A game in, even though it was many levels lower than I usually work. Because my parents said, if somebody's paying you, you give them 110%, doesn't matter what you're doing. And this is the kind of thing we're still getting. Look at this guy, Matt, who feels that he's so justified. Come on, universe, throw us a bone here and at least take out one Trump, Musk, or RFK Jr. before the year ends. So you're calling for somebody to be murdered because you don't agree with their mindset. And here's another thing I want your opinion on. Caitlin Clark. She gets named Athlete of the Year because her performance was just exceptional. And rather than saying anything, just even neutral, she goes into woke captured mode apologizing and talking about her privilege and everything else. Her athleticism is why she was at the top, not because of anything else. And she's apologizing. I was so disappointed when I saw that. I don't know if you saw it. What about you, audience? What did you think about what Caitlin Clark did? Now, I don't want to come down too hard on her because she's outnumbered. She's completely surrounded. I mean, these women are so envious of her. They're actually fouling her with balls in her, trying to hurt her. So it is really bad. But let's be honest. If you give in to bullies, it does not make them like you more. It does not make them resent you less. I cringed when I saw that. Obviously, there's no one in her life that told her that. You never give in to bullies because it emboldens them. And it reminded me of when we had our top politicians kneeling for BLM and putting those black squares on Instagram. And did it make it? All it did was embolden people. And I want to say something because, Melinda, you're Australian. I meet people who came over to Australia as refugees all the time. And a lot of them are so entitled. They're not grateful. Anybody that lets me live in their country, anybody that lets me live in their state, I'm grateful. I walk around with an attitude of gratitude. I was not brought up to be entitled. These people are so entitled because of what the left is telling them. Whatever
That's exactly right.
They want more.
Yes.
You're seeing it in the UK as well, where people are protesting because they don't have better houses and they want more
That's
luxury goods.
And Dina, can I just say that it is going a little bit even further than that now. We're going from entitlement now to the next level of two-tier policing, and where we're actually allowing people to break the law. We have gone so woke with our police force and our justice system that now what's happening in the Five Eyes countries, particularly all over the world, is that there is this fear of policing certain groups of people, and yet there is no fear in policing white people. And you can see the two-tier policing starting to become more and more overt. Now, what that does is that takes it all to the next level. It moves from entitlement to expectation, and then it moves from expectation, I think, to control. And well, we get to dictate terms, and that's what's happening in the US as well. And it's also
happening everywhere.
Yes.
The one difference we've got is we've got Trump now. And Trump is bringing in a whole new team and a whole new mindset. And I'm going to tell you, all of my audience, if you are white, do not feel guilty. Do not let someone tell you, oh, you looked at me wrong. That's a microaggression. Do not fall for that. I'm telling you, Roscoe wanted to know social psychology. Convincing white people everything you did was wrong and everything you do is wrong, so that you have to pay me money or let me take advantage of you or let me steal from your store, or you have to be okay with young white people getting qualified and not being able to get jobs because everybody wants to hire the underqualified minority. Now, the good thing is I'm nobody's DEI hire. I am so qualified and I have worked for everything I have. So people like me, we're just like the legal immigrants in the States who are so angry at the illegals who come in and feel entitled to live there, entitled to go to college, entitled to get health care, entitled to even be there. They're like, we paid money, we did it the right way, we worked hard to get our legal citizenship or our legal immigrant status, and this is what you're going to do? No. Guilt is a tool used to manipulate. Do not feel guilty. Be like Yoda says, there is no try. Do or do not, there is no try. I would say if something bothers you, do not do it anymore. But do not feel guilty. Guilt is a manipulation tool. Like fear, it's one of the easiest ones to implement, and it's very powerful. Placating bullies invites more abuse. Now, we're going to talk about why it's important not to close your mind and not think you're ever wrong. Okay? You could be wrong about something. It's another reason for going on BlueSky. Again, I don't want to be in an echo chamber. When they say something and they show me a report, they send me a study, I actually look at it. What I found to be a problem is when I do it in reverse, they find an excuse why they can't look at anything I send them. They're always asking source. I send them a source. Oh, I can't look at that. One of the people on that, one of the 12 researchers on that got in trouble when he was in high school, so I can't read that study. Now, here's the BlueSky top hit parade, at least for now. It's Bobby Kennedy, President Trump, I love saying that, President Trump, Pete Hegseth, and Nancy Mace.
Yay.
Congresswoman Nancy Mace she's my hero. I actually put a picture of her. I went on Grok and said, show me Nancy Mace in a Wonder Woman costume. Okay.
She's great.
And you can see on her face that it hurts her. These people are physically attacking her. She was actually physically attacked to the point that she has to wear a brace and has to get physiotherapy for the next 6 weeks. It is no joke, but she's not backing down. She looks at gender ideology like many of us do and say there is nothing positive that comes out of this. It is horrendous, and I'm not going to back down. And they have come after her in every way they can. Now, one of the problems when you go to sites like BlueSky or TikTok, the more anti-Trump slurs, the more likes. The more anti-Nancy Mace slurs, the more likes. The more you claim that RFK Jr. is going to cause all of us to be sickly and die, the more likes you get. So it's actually building this momentum of hatred and dislike based on complete ignorance. There's never any, and if you actually counter with genuine evidence of what they really did say, what they really did, they don't want to know. They don't want to know. I think I look at this and it reminds me of something in the urban community. Now, I will admit to you, I grew up as a military kid. So when you're looking at me and looking at the braid saying, oh, she grew up in some ghetto. No, no. I mainly lived in white neighborhoods and overseas. My dad got transferred to Germany. So I have a very different experience, but I'm still a Black woman and I still know things about my culture. And there's a game called Playing the Dozens, which I found horrendous, maybe because I didn't grow up that way, where two people will stand across from each other, surrounded by a crowd, and they'll trade insults with each other. And the more clever the insult and the more the other person flinches, the more the crowd will applaud, and that's how the person wins. And that's what I'm seeing with the Democrats now. And they also do something that social psychologically is very powerful. They all keep repeating the same lines and the claims. Trump is taking away women's rights. Trump is going to do this. Bobby Kennedy is going to give us polio. When you keep seeing that everywhere, truth becomes what is oft repeated. So there's a part of your brain that starts to believe it if you're not careful, just because you see it repeated in so many contexts. And that's why the behavior during the COVID era was so dangerous, because you had absolute lies being repeated by every newscaster, by Hollywood, by your politicians, lying, all using the same terms, all saying it the same way. And it starts to become indoctrination. And it's also why the Democrats worked so hard and bent so many laws to convict Trump of something. Now, he's disputing the existing conviction, and he's probably going to get it overturned because it was ridiculous. But they wanted to be able to call him a felon. They wanted to be able to call him a rapist. And at the same time, how does this work? They're building statues to a violent felon who never helped anybody. George Floyd was a waste of space, and they gave him a gold casket, 4 funerals in different states during the height of the COVID era when nobody was supposed to travel. They gave his family $27 million. And yet Trump, they're having to change the law to make anything he did a crime. And, oh, he's a felon. He's a felon. Well, don't you admire felons? Isn't that what
Yes,
George
I
Floyd
love the
was?
hypocrisy. Hypocrisy
And,
is just the
and they love
foundation
it.
of.
This woman has accused 7 men of rape, 4 of them very powerful men, never made a police report. There is no way the rape accusation against Trump would have held up if she weren't backed by powerful people who wanted to be able to turn women against him by calling him a rapist. She got the plot off of Law and Order. She has a cover where she wears the outfit she said she was wearing at the time, which hadn't been made until several years after she said this event happened. She is off. And yet they love it because then they can say, well, you admire a rapist felon. And the level of hatred in the left and among the Democrats, it borders on hysteria. And I would say the problem with this is the brain does not compartmentalize as well as we think it does. So if you actually feel hatred for somebody, it's going to impact your thinking, your judgment, your learning ability in every area of your life, which is why for the people I care about, I'm telling you, look at them, incarcerate them if they break the law, hold them accountable, don't give in to them, but don't emulate the hysteria that they've got. Don't follow them down that rabbit hole because you will lose and we will lose. Feeling hatred for someone is as limiting to your brain and to your thinking as extreme fear. And I had a whole couple of episodes of Heart and Mind here where we talked about what fear does to the brain and to the body. It's incredibly impactful. Hatred does the same thing. When the hated object is considered, it distorts what you see, it distracts, the world shrinks. Confirmation bias grows. Now, my sister, the one I did the healing the rift work with, keeps reminding me, remind people about confirmation bias. That's the tendency we have to pay more attention and to remember information that confirms our existing beliefs. When you have hatred, it is excruciatingly painful for everybody else not to hate that person to the same extent. And so you will be looking for other people who share your hatred. You will be looking for other people who share your perspective, and it will be terrible to be around. It will actually cause you physical pain in your gut when you're around people who don't share that hatred, or God forbid, actually have the opposite view. And all of this hatred takes over so much of your brain and body, your critical thinking starts to disappear. Even if you're smart, even if you had critical thinking before. So we're getting short on time. I'm going to just cover a few tips on how to remain morally righteous and keep your critical thinking in place. This is from my Healing the Rift training program. If anybody's interested in actually training their staff, their school, or whatever, go on my website, which I will have on the end at the last slide on the show, and contact me. But an emotional reaction, number one, an emotional reaction is a warning you're not being objective. So try not to make decisions or choices or say too much when you have that visceral reaction. When I saw people threatening to poison any men who voted for Trump and saying divorce anybody who voted for Trump, and especially something close to my heart, all of these leaders, these Black women like Joy Reid and Whoopi Goldberg saying, totally shun your relatives if they voted for Trump. And that has had a direct impact on my life. So you can imagine. So I knew, because I had an emotional reaction, I wasn't being objective about it. Now remember, a bias can either be for or against a person or group, and everyone has bias. So don't look at it as something only bad people have, or think you can completely get rid of it. You can't. It's a natural human reaction. When somebody says something that you disagree with, even if you have a really strong reaction to it, your reaction doesn't mean that they are wrong. So actually take a deep breath, ground yourself, go for a walk, and look at the information they're giving you. Is there something you missed? Could they be right? I keep waiting for the Democrats to be right about anything, because I will actually read what they send me. I look at the methodology, it's absolute crap. I never would have graduated if I had methodology that unsound. Do something else. And this is something, if you are indoctrinated, you are unable to do. And this is a good test of people. Switch the protagonist in your mind. And I've seen influencers go around interviewing people and saying, did you know Trump? And they will list a bunch of things Biden did. And the people are like, oh, that's horrible, that's horrible. And the person said, oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't Trump, that was Biden that did it. And then they immediately go into the excuses, the rationalizations, the minimizations. So if you wonder if you're being biased about what you think, try to switch the protagonists in your mind. How would you feel if the other side did that? If you'd have a bad reaction, say, okay, maybe I need to look at this again, because you don't want to follow anyone blindly. Nobody is worthy of that except Jesus Christ, okay? Do not follow anyone blindly. Now, here's another thing. Try to be civil to everyone, but don't pretend agreement. So if somebody's nice to me, I'm nice to them back. If they're friendly, I'm friendly back. I try to be friendly to people, I walk around, I smile, eye contact. But if they ask me, do you believe this is okay? I don't lie. I am not going to say, oh, if I tell them the truth, it'll hurt their feelings. Their feelings need to be hurt, because they are using what they believe is uniform approval to bully their way into taking over everything. We have to start showing them that we don't agree with the lifestyles they support, the behavior they support, the laws that they want to put in place. Retain your integrity. We talked about that last time, about a gift, a free gift you can give yourself. Say what you will do and do what you say. Keep your integrity. Do not claim to believe something and be okay with something if it is not true. You don't have to bully someone about their beliefs or behaviors or whatever, but just don't pretend. Keep your integrity strong. And we're going to talk next time, or the time after that. It depends. I may wait until everybody comes back from Christmas, because critical thinking is so important. And I have some tips to improve your critical thinking, and we all need these. And by the way, every time I teach you something, I remind myself, because it has to be practiced on a regular basis or you lose it. Critical thinking makes you more resistant to manipulation. And it's another reason I want to really strengthen your critical thinking. Also, we're being given an opportunity to reshape our world. I'm talking to you, Americans. And I know that's really hard for you UK people and you Australians and you Canadians, because you are in a cesspool right now. But we need to show you how it's done, and we can show you that through courage and actually getting it right when we get this opportunity. And number one, no double standards. This is how you know the Democrats are wrong. If it was wrong, if your side, if you're blaming somebody for something that if your side did it, you would excuse, no. I found in personal relationships, marriages don't work with a moral double standard. Now, you can have different roles, but there need to be fundamentals with no double standard. If it were wrong, if that side did it, it's wrong if your side did it. That's a good way to lose your integrity, is to have a double standard. And it starts quickly eroding your critical thinking. So What do you think, Melinda? What do you think, audience? Anybody besides Roscoe have an opinion? Come on, you guys. You know you want to say something. We've got a few minutes left. Well, what do you think?
I think that double standards is one of the foundations of wokeism. I think that their hypocrisy and double standards is actually so obvious. That's probably one of the really big signs that you are speaking to a truly indoctrinated person who can't actually see their hypocrisy or double standards. I think the double standards one is a really, really big one, Dina. Very big.
I think that's the appeal and that's how when people, I know this sounds a little bit exaggerated, but that's how I know that what the Democrats are representing is actually evil. Because when you look at the traditional role of evil, you have the devil coming and promising someone that they can have all of these benefits with no costs, that they'll never be held accountable. Yeah. And even when you have shows by woke people like Lucifer and Dexter and Hannibal and all of these shows, you'll note that the protagonist who's committing absolute evil, what is the show about the vampires? True Blood.
Oh, True Blood, yeah.
You have people committing absolutely evil acts, and not only are they not punished, or the punishment is minimal, they set them up so that the audience actually applauds for them.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing. Yes, but that's what we're seeing with all of the crimes being committed by Democrats, where they're either getting a slap on the wrist or they're getting off with no punishment at all. And we're not just Democrats, Labor Party people, which is the same side as the Democrats. So I'm making all of you Americans more aware of the broader world we live in, because whether you know it or not, we all influence each other. All the English-speaking countries have an enormous amount of influence on each other. So even though most of us kind of snub Canada, it all counts.
It does.
It all counts. So we are influencing each other. And so the Labor Party in the UK and Australia, and that would be the Liberals. This is where it gets confusing. The Liberals in Canada, while the Liberals in Australia are the Conservative Party. Very confusing, okay? But what you're seeing is left-wing people with mental health issues, people with a questionable morality are very attracted to wokeism because it advocates and applauds depravity.
It lets them off the hook. There's no personal responsibility, no accountability, and it lets them off the hook. And that's where the hypocrisy lies. And it's not just hypocrisy, it's depravity, it's mental illness, and it's also narcissism. And I think there's a lot of those points that you touched upon today. You touched upon them quite well. And I think that if we maintain that critical thinking that you mentioned, we're able to calmly and in a very considered way, not just point out the hypocrisy, but talk about things that are facts, talk about things that just we can lay out very clearly and very consistently without going down an emotional quagmire. And I think those points that you said today, Dina, are very tightly related. It was a great summary.
Well, I hope, do me a favor, audience, show this show to other people, because a lot of people need this information. And again, one of the things that I think it is critically important to do, while as Christians we're taught to forgive does not mean that somebody doesn't bear consequences for their actions, because you're not really helping them if they don't see consequences for their actions, because then they will repeat the wrong behavior. And another thing the woke has allowed people to do, it's given them free rein to bully anyone who doesn't share their beliefs. So while they have these anti-bullying campaigns for traditionally disapproved of groups, and I would argue cultures disapproved of these groups with valid reason, okay? So they've said, oh no, not only are we going to take away the disapproval of these groups. We're going to actually promote and applaud and try to increase the size of these groups. It is absolutely frightening. I described it, Melinda and I were having a conversation, and I was describing this as a new dark age. Because if you look at the dark ages, historical dark ages, you had a lot of stuff going on still. You had a lot of wealth. I mean, mentally, we think of it and we think everybody was wearing gray and brown. That's not true. But what you had is a double-tiered society where you had a really small elite with absolute power, and everyone else was kept as ignorant as possible and was harshly punished if they didn't do what they were told. They are trying to return us to that. You have all of these climate change enthusiasts, all of whom have bought seafront property, have yachts, jets. So while they're telling the minions, which is us, oh, climate change and this is a problem and whatever, they are doing whatever they want, and they're trying to keep us as ignorant as possible. And they tested us to see how much they could get away with during the COVID era. How much will you comply when there's so many holes in the argument? If this virus is so scary, why are you able to wear just a cloth mask or just a scarf around your face? Why aren't there hazmat disposal units? Why don't you have to wear gloves? Why does the checkout person get to touch all your food as she checks out your food if this virus is so bad? There were just so many holes. Why do we have exceptions made for all the leaders in all of the Western countries? They did not have to get vaccinated. And I've mentioned that I was going to be hired by the FBI. I don't know there's going to be an FBI. I want to work for Cash's FBI. But I was hired by the FBI because domestic violence is such a big issue for law enforcement, both within their own families and in what they deal with. A lot of bombers and shooters have domestic violence issues. So it's something they really need to understand. They were going to hire me to train them. And they wanted me to get vaccinated to come into the FBI building. And I said, why should I get vaccinated? People in the White House don't have to be vaccinated. And the supervisor who was on the video call said she's absolutely right. So no vaccination required. So you look at it, why would they do that? They'd be running to get the vaccine if the virus is that scary. Making up lies about medications that were readily available and actually worked. They were testing to see how much crap we were willing to put up with without argument. So let's show them we've got a chance now, because in this case, America is going to lead the world. We have to save our family, which is the other English-speaking countries. And I'm sorry, Melinda, that does include New Zealand. I know how Australia and New Zealand is like the US and Canada. But
well, I'm just about to go to New Zealand, actually. It is a beautiful country, and there's some really great people over there, but they are actually in a slightly darker place than Australia at the moment, which is, it's hard to believe because Australia is heading down a very dark tunnel. But New Zealand is actually ahead of Australia in terms of that, which is frightening because it's such a small country and it's a beautiful place. But there's a little bit of friendly rivalry, but we do love our New Zealanders, and of course we just can't believe that they are ahead of the game in terms of tyranny and population control. So it's a bit of a sad state of affairs. Yeah.
So instead of helping foreign countries we can't find on a map who are always giving us the finger, we can first lead by example and help our own people. And then we need to help our family members. We need to help the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand.
Yes.
Because we all influence each other because they're part of our family. So I want you guys to think about this and go on X, follow me on X and send me some notes. Is there a topic that you want to know? Roscoe sent me a note during a show, which is a little challenging. If there's something you want me to discuss and disclose and expose, send me a note. We'll make a show about it. If you actually want to do what Melinda did, I can have up to 10 people on the stage with me. You want to be on and give your opinion and ask some questions? I'm not proud. I'd love to have you along. So hopefully I will hear from you somewhere, Facebook, X. If you follow me on Rumble, write an opinion, let me know. And hopefully I will see you all on Monday, which is Christmas Eve. So thank you for joining me.
Bye.